Okay, so let me begin by saying hello and good morning to all of you. Before we begin this session, yes, please come forward and have a seat. So I'll use a mix of English and Sinhala, so if there's anything you guys need to ask me, feel free to ask, right? So this session, although it's conducted primarily online with a small in-person audience as well, um, to begin with, have anybody here heard of the human-centric mindset? Okay, one. Anybody else? No. Bye depa kata karan. Right? Although it's an online session, I encourage people to ask questions or at least speak up, right? So today when we are learning the human-centric mindset, we are going to forget the Sri Lankan learning system. The first principle is that. Because according to the Sri Lankan schooling system, when we were growing up, you would have realized we don't get to ask questions, right? The teacher comes, walks up to the board, gives us all the news, the letters, the tutes, everything. So eventually, we just absorb it. We just learn from a tute, we just learn from a paper, and we forget that there is beyond the teacher's tute. To know more, to ask questions, to think further, to think deeper. We forget that. So today, with the human-centric mindset, I'm going to teach you how to look beyond that. How to look beyond what the teacher tells you, how to look beyond what everybody else says is the status quo. Huh? Okay, yeah. Oh, right. Done. Okay. So, introduction to me. My name is Sajini Jayawardena, and I've been in the design thinking space for the last 14 years. So I'm an innovation and design thinking consultant and strategist. Currently, I'm also an expert in residence at Imperial College London, and I have also a co-founder of a company called Impactor, which does innovation, training, upskilling programs for companies. Also, we work in the design space. So this is a rough idea of what we will be discussing today. We'll be learning the approach on how to approach innovation, the human-centric mindset, activating the human-centric mindset, design thinking. We are looking at an introductionary perspective. So we are not going to cover the full process, but the most important process that relates to the human-centric mindset and the practical applications. So for today's masterclass, as I said, I want everybody to take a good breather, right? Leave aside the ego, leave aside the degrees you all have learned throughout your lives, right? Leave aside what you think you know. Leave aside everything that you have not questioned. And start with a blank canvas. Mama danne. Kiyana e hangimmen patan ganna, right? So, yes. How do you approach innovation? Anybody? How do you approach innovation? But as a Sri Lankan, what is the practice of approaching innovation? Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. Okay. Right. Anybody else? Okay. So first of all, you will analyze the like a problem. And first of all, before going to the solution, right? Anybody else? Anybody who has done it the other way, where you think, I know a technology, so let me build something and put it out. Yeah, those are environmental factors. But I'm asking, how do you approach? Hmm. Suddenly, when you think, oh, there is a new technology, a aha moment, or there is something which I know which nobody else knows, let me build a product. And you see a lot of people in different marketplaces selling products which have not a main use, but which are there, but no mass market. So that is called the reverse approach of innovation, which a lot of Sri Lankan mindsets are catered to, right? So when we usually look at building a product, predominantly in the Asian region, now it's changing though, we go with, we have a technology or an idea, we build, and then we look for a customer. That has been the mindset. It worked during Henry Ford's time where, he was thinking, what do people need? A faster horse or something else? That worked during the Industrial Revolution where people had no insight, no access to information, and no means of comparing data, comparing markets, comparing options. That wasn't available. So this method actually did work, maybe about 40, 50 years ago, even up to 30 years ago. But the human-centric path is where we find a human struggle, whether it's using data, whether it's using something you have observed in the market, or whether it's something that you have heard and experienced by yourself. So then we understand the why, and then we design the solution. So this human-centric path is what is going to be the main frame of innovation in the next 100 years. Because ultimately, whatever you design, regardless of the talent or the ideas or the technology that you know, is going to be used by someone. So if that person who uses it doesn't have a struggle or a problem to address, your solution, no matter how great it is going to fail. Right? When you think you know what's best, let's look at a few examples where engineers and innovators have thought they know the customer, and without even knowing the customer sometimes, they come up with a product. So we'll start with this. Have you all heard of that brand called Cheetos? It's like Pringles, it's like another quick snack brand, which had like little tip sort of thing. So Cheetos decided that because they have a good, rapport in the FMCG market, that they will try a new vertical. So the R&D team came up with the idea saying that, right, so when people eat Cheetos, they get that yellow lip like when we get it from that cheese ball tippy tip, right? So they thought, okay, maybe people like that because some people tended to want to have that shade of lip. So then they thought they'll come up with a lip balm. So it came as Cheetos Lip Balm, right? And that was a massive failure. They invested millions of dollars in coming up with this strategy and creating a lip balm with that flavor, thinking people wanted that, and ultimately lost an entire vertical. So then this one, it's called a face trainer. It's made predominantly for people who wanted to contour their face, with the current technology, they want to have a nice slimmer V-shaped face. And they thought, okay, while you're sitting at work, when you're walking around, let's create a face trainer which will help your muscles to sort of tone up and have a good feature. But ultimately, when you use that and walk around in public, it's going to make you look ridiculous. So they didn't look at the human element. They didn't assume what people wanted to do was to get the face tone, but they didn't want to look ridiculous in public. So that, again, was another failure. Then Colgate. How many of you here have heard of Colgate? What is it known for? Yes, toothpaste. So toothpaste brand decided they will do food, and they came up with a beef lasagna and a few other varieties. But that also because they wanted to go into a new blue chip area which was not tapped into by the vertical. And this again was a very imminent failure because people knew Colgate to be a toothpaste brand. They didn't think they would go beyond toothpaste. Maximum would have been like a toothbrush, right? But then when they wanted to shift a vertical and jump a vertical, came this. And people were disregarding it. People were finding it funny. Like, who would want to have a Colgate beef lasagna? They assumed it would taste like toothpaste because it was from Colgate, right? And then Google Glass. How many of you remember this Google Glass? It was a very short stint marketing product, and it failed very badly. Why do you think it failed, the Google Glass? Anyone? Any ideas? That is one element you could say. What else? Purpose, yeah. Anything else? Why did the Google Glass fail? Don't be shy. Just speak up. We want to get rid of that Sri Lankan system of learning where මං කටවහගෙන අරක බලන් ඉන්නම්. මොකෝ නැත්තම් මං ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඇහුවොත් I will look dumb කියන හිතුව ඒ මතේ අයින් කරලා දාලා speak freely, right? So why do you think the Google Glass failed? Anybody else? What about you, gentlemen? Why do you think it failed? මොකද? Just shoot an idea. එක හේතුවක් කියන්න. No, it was not heavy. Expensive, yes, but not the main reason. Anything else? Just guess. Design, not really the design also. Anything else? Yes, you could say part of it is the problem. Anything else? Any other guess? No? Privacy concern. Right? You're walking on the road, you can capture everything. So you can capture people's unprecedented videos, their faces, all that. So it was capturing a lot of data which was infringing on people's personal rights. So without consent. So that's the main reason, without the proper validation of the usage, that the product failed. Not because the technology was bad, but now Ray-Ban is coming up with similar glasses, but they have addressed these concerns because of what they didn't do well. Then this one. Have all of you heard about Nintendo? One of those first game consoles which came before PlayStation also, I think. So Nintendo came up with something called the Virtual Boy. So Virtual Boy was like one of these Oculus headsets where you will put it on and then you will have a virtual reality experience of your game, right? And they designed a product where you could sit in a chair and lean forward and watch it. Why do you think it failed? Ergonomics. Yes, ergonomics was one of the key issues. A lot of people started saying the design looked ugly. You had to keep bending forwards and then you get back pains. So yeah, different issues. So they wanted to be very futuristic, right? And they became a dud in the market. But now they try to reintroduce the product again, but with a different dimension to it. So, and then Cosmopolitan Yogurt, another example like Colgate, where it's a magazine, but they decided they'll go into FMCG. They came up with a yogurt brand, which again failed. So you do realize that when you don't consider the end user, a lot of things fail. Because ultimately, what I tell startups too is you can't stay a startup forever. You have to become a business eventually, which means you progress from KG or kindergarten, which is the startup stage, into becoming a schoolgoer or university student, which is the business stage. So to do that, you have to design experiences and products that focus on human centricity, right? Human centricity is the practice of designing products, services, and internal processes by focusing on the experience of the end user. That means you design for the end user. Not for yourself, not for your ego thinking, "Mang හැම එකම දන්න නිසා I will give them what they want" කියන එක නැතුව, you design for the experience of the end user, right? So when designing with human centricity, there are 3 key principles that we have to remember. The first is the desirability. Is your solution desirable to the humans? What do people actually need? Are you considering that? Is the first principle. Second is feasibility. What can we technically build? So as engineers, you would know what you can technically build, the tech. So first you identify a person's struggles by observing. Then you, with your knowledge, you know, okay, this is a struggle, so how do I address this? So you know your technology as engineers, so you have to assess what can we technically build. Viability. So viability asks about what makes sense for business. Which part of this tech plus need can I make a business out of, right? So it's like assessing how you can make money from that tech, which is catering to a personal need. So innovation actually is the combination of all three: desirability, feasibility, and viability. So the interlapping section of all three is where your innovation should start, the sweet spot. Right? So we are going to focus on a very small exercise for those who have logged in online as well as offline. It is called the 5 whys. Have you heard about this exercise? Anybody here? It's from a very famous automobile company that brought this about. Anybody heard of this? No? So it was introduced by Toyota. The R&D teams and the research teams at Toyota introduced this concept to focus on human-centric, rational thinking. So the 5 whys asks you to choose a problem you have noticed. So is there any problem you noticed on your way to the IESL Institute today in the morning? Anybody? Any problem you noticed on the road, in your neighborhood, within the city, within the vehicle you were going? Anything that you noticed? Anybody? Don't be shy. Just speak up. Any problem that you noticed on the way here? No? Okay. Without the, yeah, so jaywalking. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Any other problems you noticed? Mm. Without any signal, no? Okay. Anything else? Anybody else who noticed any issues in the morning when you're coming over to IESL? Wow. If there's no issues, I will be happy. But anyway, if you are still shy a little bit to kind of, interact. Yes, traffic light not working properly. Or maybe somebody had strewn some garbage all over the road suddenly while you're crossing on the yellow line, right? So imagine the concept of a problem maybe you have internally realized or not. And then you write down 5 reasons starting with the word why. So I'm going to give you approximately 10 minutes for this exercise, and each of you, if you have a piece of paper or a pen, or even mentally, you can jot down 5 reasons for this problem you noticed. So if we take the example of you, instead of calling it lane discipline, you can note what the problem was in regard to lane discipline, and you can email this to eeb2018iesl@gmail.com. No, you should, maybe you can think of a problem you have encountered in your neighborhood, anything that you have noticed. I will not be giving. You have to use your creativity. Write down 5 statements as to why it is a problem. You can actually use 5 minutes to think and 5 minutes to write. So, one problem and 5 whys. Yeah. Ah, hold on. You can start with the word because. So, say for an example, it's like you saw, waste that is lying on the road because somebody kept it there. Yes, yes. So you can start every sentence with the word because. Yes. No need of solution, just the whys. I only want only the whys. Why that is a problem. Only 5 whys as to why the thing you thought of is a problem. No, you can erase the second column, it might be confusing. So we'll focus just on the why. So you can start each sentence with the word because. You have 6 minutes more to go. Try to start each of the whys with the word because. 'Have you at least reached the third sentence by now of the third why? 3 minutes more to go. Done? Okay. Who else has completed? Done? Okay. Right. Okay. So now you have 5 reasons. Okay, we've got 3 more people writing. We'll give it 1 minute. Done? Is everybody done? Okay? All done. Okay, great. So you've got 5 reasons, right? I want each of you to tell me your last reason for the problem and what the problem you thought is there. We can start with you. What was the problem and what is the last why? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Okay, so the actual reason in that case is the roads are narrow. Root cause. So which means instead of going to look for a pedestrian crossing, they think it's convenient. So right? So that is the root cause. Right. So then what about you? What is the problem and what is your fifth why? Mm-hmm. 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 Garbage. Okay, okay. Wherever they want. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What was the last why for that problem? The last reason for them to go and be dumping garbage wherever they want to, the workers? For them to garbage. Ah, right. So the main root problem is they haven't gotten a proper demarcated place to remove. Okay. Okay. What about you, Ms. Chan? What's the problem? Mm-hmm. Okay. No, the last why. The last one. Okay. No proper traffic controlling mechanism or system. Okay. What about you? Hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. Why? Mm. Okay. That you could say more like lack of motivation to continue. Okay. So, what about you? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Travel when you need it. Mm-hmm. All wrong. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. what would be the fifth, the last reason for this this traffic versus the motorability of the roads and all? The designers, planning and the roadway designs, no? Mm-hmm. Right, right. No proper thought process into planning. Mm. I believe that is also because of the strict road planning regulations on those countries. Whereas in Sri Lanka, it's more like a learning on the go process. They see, they copy, they change, they will have different mechanisms in play. So, yeah. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. And the legal systems are very strong. They will never sue in Sri Lanka. That's the problem, no? People do what they want. Yeah, yeah, that's why, that's why. Same. Mm. Safety officer, yeah, they're the ones who know about the issue and the safety concerns. Yes. What about you? What is your problem and what is the fifth why? Okay. So there is no monitoring from a proper authority. Okay. So everybody is rule breaking at the same time then. Yeah. Okay. Right. So as engineers, you realize that all these reasons will give you an end solution that you can build, right? So this is how you critically reduce, like it's called deductive thinking, where you assume you have a problem. The first reason you give for that problem is usually the most common or the most obvious reason. But when you think, and come to the fifth reason, the last reason is where you find the actual problem, where your ego, where your knowledge of what you think you know, all that has been given off in the first couple of reasons, and you finally come to the actual root cause of the matter. So that's why whenever you have a problem which you want to solve or a solution, keep it a practice. The 5 why system. Write 5 reasons, okay, why did this happen to me? Why did this thing? All that. Then fifth one, you will realize by that time you actually come to the reality, the root cause. The reality comes in the last option. So that is like when you said for your company, the lack of motivation to attend to the task. So at the first instance, you will be like, nah, this is the issue. This is the vague issue, right? But the real reason is that. So when you know the real reason, that is when you can start doing something, building something, giving an experience that will curb that, right? We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking that we used when we created the problem. That's Albert Einstein's mode of thinking, which is very true. We can't use the same old mindset which we use when we create problems to solve the problem. So now it's called activating the human-centric mindset. I'm going to show you a few steps on how you can expand your thinking as engineers to sort of look deeper, find actual causes and build around it. Right? Step one, which most of us don't want to do, right? We have to discard the ego. Discard the thinking that I've earned my bachelor's degree, I've earned my postgraduate degree, I've got my engineering certifications, I've got. It's true you have all of that. You will be qualified. It's true that you have gained everything. You spent your hard work and money and effort and time. True. Nobody is saying no. But when you want to solve something, you have to discard it. Discard the fact that you know everything. අර කියනවනේ like in Sri Lanka, like in usual terms, හිඟන්නෙක්ගෙන් උත් මොනවා දෙකක් තියෙනවා ඉගෙන ගන්න කියලා. Adopt that mindset, thinking I will learn something from everything around me. Whether it's a tree, a leaf, a road, an animal, a plant, a person, I have something to learn. Adopt that mindset that I have something to learn and you will not go wrong. So forget what you think you know and begin with a blank canvas. When you try to solve problem, it's always best to start with a blank canvas. So first step is you replace the egocentric thinking. Replace what you know already and ask, replace the mindset that I have a great idea and how do I get people to use it, right? That's like that better mousetrap theory, where you keep on making better mousetraps, get to this thing, because you don't think beyond the mousetrap to find the solution. You forever think, I'll do a new version of a mousetrap, a better version of a mousetrap, put a different color for the next update. No, right? So replace the ego, replace the thinking that you know everything, and start with a blank canvas. With a human-centric mindset, assume that, and you know that people are struggling with a problem, right? So you focus your problem solving from the point of X, meaning people have a problem. Regardless of the problem, maybe you have an idea. If you don't have an idea, think that you will find a problem or look and observe a problem, right? How do you help them solve it? Start with the problem and ask, how do you help them solve it? Then the third one is, it's called the 10-minute shadow thinking, right? So shadow thinking is a common practice in a lot of tech companies as well as multinational companies. Shadow thinking is where you observe. So even at Google, if you notice, like in the Singapore office, we have spaces which are different to one another, because psychologically the human mind can't focus on one thing for more than 40 minutes. That's why in Google practice, they don't have extended sessions or workshops beyond 45 minutes. Every 45 minutes, they give you a small break, so that you will either have an interactive session, an activity which you will talk with other people, brainstorm through something and all that. So that's why even with the learning systems, they tell people, sit for 40 minutes, think, focus. Thereafter, get up, go for a walk, listen to a piece of music, come back. So you're refreshing that thinking frame so that you're not over-absorbing. Then when you have refreshed it if you were reading a book, listen to music. If you are listening to a lecture, go for a walk, or go and have a drink or a glass of water or something, so that you're doing something aside of what you were doing before. That way, it will help you to think straight, to think clearly with clarity. So in the shadow method, what we do is, say we want to solve a problem. You want to solve the traffic issue. What is the best thing you do? You go to a very heavy traffic area and sit silently. Don't talk to anybody. Maybe sit in some street in Peta or a shop, have a nice drink, right? Have a samosa or something. Sit down and observe everybody without talking at all. So that is called the unbiased way of observation. You have to throw aside everything you know. You can't be like, look at that fellow, he's not even walking straight. None of those, right? You have to forget everything and just observe. Observe what people are doing. Observe what they're saying. Observe the way they walk. Where do they walk to first? What do they look at first? What do they do with the bag near them? Do they look at their phone? Or do they adjust it? How confident do they look? Ask all those questions. That's why I said at the beginning of this lecture, we have to forget the Sri Lankan education system of learning, which people tell you what you need to learn and you're done with that. So you start by questioning everything. So in this silent method of observation called shadow thinking, you're questioning, you're observing, and you're taking note. You can take mental notes, you can write it on your phone, you can write it on a notepad. Either way, you observe people. And limit it to 10 minutes, by the way, 10 to 15 minutes. Don't go beyond that. Because beyond that, your mind will be distracted and you'll be thinking elsewhere, you'll be answering your calls and all, then the purpose of it is gone. So time constraints actually help you think with clarity. So limit the shadow observations to 15 minutes at most, and then switch to a different location, right? Step 2 is called the empathy switch. Usually when we use the word empathy, people think, how, being kind and considerate. Sympathy, empathy, both. Like, you try to understand another person is empathy, right? So in this case, empathy is not just about being nice or understanding someone. It is a data gathering tool, right? Empathy is actually a data gathering tool where you put yourself in another person's shoes and try to understand that point, the problem from their perspective. That is called empathizing, which is also the first stage in design thinking, right? So we looked at two modes of thinking in this, right? Closed mode and open mode. So first of all, as I said in the observation method, go get some space, right? Visit a creative spot, which is visit an art gallery, one of the street markets, anywhere. Whatever is relevant to your field or your industry, visit that, right? Visit this creative space, outdoors, busy street, any area relevant to your field, right? Observe for up to 30-40 minutes. Not silent observation, you can do walking observations too, right? Then the thinking modes. So we have something called the thinking phase closed mode. What do you think is closed mode? As I said earlier, when we give people too much of freedom, they get distracted. So that's why the closed concentration mode you use for approximately 15 to 40 minutes at most, where you think, okay, right, now I need to concentrate and focus on this task, or I need to focus on the problem and understand the problem better. So you are concentrating in closed mode. Then the third mode is inspiration phase, which is called open thinking. So in closed mode, you're focusing on the problem. In the open mode, you're focusing on the solution. You're trying to inspire yourself. What is possible from the road crossings and all? Instead of asking, okay, why can't these people cross in the right path? You ask, okay, how can I help them to cross with better? Should I give them better guidance? Should I give them a different, like an immunity or some sort of accessory or whatever? So you look at inspiration on how you solve that problem in the open mode. So open mode doesn't have a time constraint. Open mode means you're open, whether it be in 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, 1 year. Well, don't drag 1 year. I would say maximum open mode, keep it to under 1 month if you want it. Yeah. Yeah, you can say සංවේදී. Yeah, ඒක ඔක්කොම කියන්න පුළුවන්. You can. Yes. ඒක තමයි කියන්නේ. يعني put yourself in somebody else's shoes. ඒ තමුන්ට මොන හරි දෙයක් වෙනකන් අනුන්ගේ අමාරුව තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ කියන එක තමයි ඕක ඇත්ත. Right? So you have to understand that unless you put yourself even in the customer or end user's shoes, you will not understand. Very less. That's what I'm telling you. Even from my experience in the startup industry, we've got amazing graduates. They have beautifully crafted skills, all industries. But the problem is, they think they know everything, so they don't want to understand the consumer first. So they want to come up with a product and be like, buy my product, But that's not going to work. People have means of looking at what better options are there. So then your technology is going to be not as great, right? So empathy switch. Always put yourself in somebody else's shoes. The third, from expert to explorer, as I said, we forget that we are the experts, at least for that time frame, right? And be curious about everything. Ask questions. Why is this wall blue? Why do we have a piece of a safe over there? Ask questions about everything. That's why even in the legal, in the legal field, especially even when you attend interviews at Oxford University, the first thing they do is, especially in the legal field, they'll ask you to argue why a white wall is black. So you should be able to argue that to be able to apply for that program and be selected for it. So as long as you can, as a lawyer, can convince somebody, no, this white wall is black, find some reason to convince under the white it could be black, right? That is the way they select people. So you go and ask our legal candidates to do that. Some of them are good. They are definitely great. They can speak and all. But a majority will keep quiet. Because one, they have been intimidated by the schooling system, so they don't ask questions. So that's why you should forget all of that and start asking questions. Observe, the first step, which we were discussing before. Watch people, what they do, what they say on their own accord without you telling them what you know. Practice curiosity. Everywhere you go, practice it. Ask questions. Why is this like that? Why is this person keeping this over here? Why is it designed this way? Why is the bridge placed over here instead of somewhere else? So ask questions, whether it's in engineering or whether it's in any field. Keep asking yourself questions, or even anybody else. Discard the confirmation bias. Now, that is the biggest problem which experts have. They want to find that their idea is a concrete yes. So they will find observations to confirm what they know. So you should never look for observations with the idea to confirm what you know. You can't be like, yeah, I've studied this, I've experienced this abroad, so this is probably a problem. Let me go and find an evidence to support my problem. That should never be the purpose of observation. You should always observe to find what are the reasons your idea won't work, right? Instead of finding reasons why your idea will work, you observe to find out a reason why your idea won't work, right? So that way, you are fail-proofing it. You are trying to look at different angles instead of confirming what you want confirmed, right? Why human-centric thinking matters. So 70 to 90% of startups actually fail. You know why? Lots of people have patents that are kept, they've patented it also, they've paid, they've got royalties. But even after getting the patent, none of them goes off the ground. No investor wants to adopt it. Why? Why do you think that is? Yeah, so not the sense of application, more like the solution is not commercially viable. There is not a big market for it. There is no absolute need for it. They will go and patent the technology and say, this is something very new, novel, all that. But if there is no business feasibility there, it's purposeless. So that's why whenever you design something, you have to remember that you're not going to design it and keep it at home. You want to make money out of it. So it has to be something that can easily be pushed to the market instead of shoving it in the person's face and be like, make a ganda ho, right? You shouldn't be having to persuade people forcefully to buy it. It should be something which they will look and say, oh yeah, really, I had this issue. So maybe I'll try it. So that should be the outcome from the person you're speaking to, right? Effective innovation helps startups or businesses build market-ready products which focus on consumer needs and not just technology, right? So it's also giving wider market reach, designing for the diversity of human needs. Your product is easier and better for everyone. As he said, our roads are not designed for diverse needs, it's designed only for a specific need in a different era, which doesn't fulfill the purpose now. So if we want wider market reach, we need to learn that eras keep changing, consumer needs keep changing, so we have to find a solution which we can expand further and keep building on, but which have a wider applicability. Stronger brand trust. When the product feels like it's addressing somebody's needs, a consumer's needs, people feel like, okay, I can trust this, I feel like this has been done for my reason or my use, so they want to trust it more. So they become very loyal fans. They will go and say, buy that company's product, buy this person's services. That's a good one. So you will find people who become fans because it addresses a need that they have, right? Design is done best with the end user in mind. So when you look at the 5 pillars of a human-centric startup model, I'm not going to go into deep thought about this, but it's mostly a model around empathy-driven innovation. You can set up a company based on these pillars too, right? So empathy-driven innovation, where your services and products are designed for the end user. Sustainability, usually empathic companies, human-centric ones, will look into the ethical parts of a person's requirements, just like the Google Glass. Right, so now Ray-Ban with Facebook and Meta came up with a better version of it, right? So they made sure that the privacy concerns are addressed, which Google didn't before. So iteration driven. When you're using human-centric mindset, you're using verification, validation from a existing audience to say, okay, I need this product, right? So it is a bit more fail-proof. Collaborative cultures. You're going to be using the human-centric mindset not within yourself. You have to be working with people from your team, from your startup. It could be people in HR, marketing, all that. You bring everybody together to work on a challenge. That is called the human-centric mindset. Not where just the board of directors will think and sit and say, yeah, this is a problem, let's vote on in that, get it passed. No. You bring employees from ground level to the up level, from the basic like service sector employee or the front office to the C-suite, right? Because problem solving, people of all levels have to contribute to, because they will see angles of the problem which you don't see, right? Similarly, you will see angles of the problem they don't see, which is why human centricity is something the entire organization has to encompass. All the stakeholders, suppliers, right? Front staff, HR, marketing, everyone. So design thinking, as I said, I won't go into a deep dive on it, but most of you here, have you all heard about design thinking? Apart from this gentleman? No? No? Okay. So design thinking is how human-centric mindset is applied to business, right? It's an innovation process which focuses on prioritizing consumer needs and building products, solutions, services, and now experiences, right? So the CEO of IDEO, who was one of the founders or founding fathers of design thinking, has said, design thinking is a human-centric approach to innovation that draws from the designer's toolkit, integrates the needs of people, possibility of technology, and the requirements for business. So it doesn't have to be a designer's toolkit, it can be anybody's. It can be an entrepreneur's toolkit, it can be an engineer's toolkit, it can be anybody's. These are the 5 stages of design thinking. So the model which I'm following is the one that followed by Google and the Harvard method, right? So in this model of design thinking, there are 5 stages. So the 5 stages in this: empathize. This is something that we spoke of earlier, where we are talking about the human-centric mindset and how to observe people. That is the first stage of design thinking. The second stage is the define stage, where we have identified a problem, then we define the problem. So the different elements come together. Ideate is where you come up with solutions to the problems that you have seen and the observations you have made. After that is prototyping. So in the usual methods, we create and build the product and then launch in a soft launch. No? In this way, we have a very small beta version of the product, where we have a group of people who we have spoken to in the empathize stage, who we have taken the details of. We will send it to them. We will ask them to experience it, to use it, to see if it's good for their needs and to give us feedback, right? So then the testing phase, that's where we do a further step in something called validation. So we go a little bit beyond the usual group or the focus group, and we send it to a target audience and ask them to try it. Ask them what they think, ask them feedback, so that we again can reiterate the learnings from the test phase and the verification phase, and we can go through it again until we refine the product, until we are satisfied. So iterating, yes, it's an iterative method. You have to prepare a minimum viable product. Yeah, for the need of the people. Show it to potential users which you have identified in the empathize stage, right? Show it to them and ask them, get them feedback. When you get the feedback, then you know, okay, they might say, okay, this design is not so great, or this color is not so great, or maybe that's not like commercially viable, maybe I can't produce it as fast. So when you get that sort of feedback, you know, okay, I need to again iterate and see how I can redefine this and structure it and add value. Yeah, you can add new features, you can add new samples, you can add anything, right? 82% of companies actually use design thinking abroad. Not many here use it. For a lot of companies in Sri Lanka, it's actually quite new. But the more forward companies, especially Pick Me and Uber also, they use a lot of design thinking. And from whatever they use in terms of the workshops, the presentations, the tools, etc., they use design thinking for everything. So before embarking on the design thinking process, as I said, it's something that all stakeholders should involve themselves with. So if you take the Engineering Institute for an example, you all are looking at designing maybe a new bridge or a drawbridge or something somewhere. So instead of only the top tier engineers collaborating to come up with a design or a solution, you look at asking everybody within the vertical structure of IESL versus the people who are in that area who will be using that bridge to come together to sort of design or to ideate what is best for them, right? So it's not just going to be, here you go, we've done it. It's going to be a collaborative, communicative effort between multi-stakeholders. Assess the type of outcome. So after gathering all the teams, you have to assess on what sort of outcome you wish to have. Design thinking process, the duration usually is about, it takes weeks sometimes, but then we have a process at Google called the design sprint, which was introduced by Google, which is a 5-day program, sort of where you get teams from different departments and spearheads and stakeholders to come in and solve an issue that the organization has. So with Impactor and our other startup called Concept, that's what we do for a lot of Sri Lankan companies who want to innovate. Then you have to ensure that all team partners can dedicate the time. So it can't be that where all of them come on one specific day, just have a meeting, have a chit chat, discuss and go. And then only a few members follow afterwards. Everybody has to have that time to involve themselves. You can't be like, mata ada gedara yanna ona, meyata hada hetana thiyana. No. You have to dedicate time, right? What do your customers think? As I said, empathizing. You can be asking many people, but it's all going to matter on how you look for the information. So in the first stage, which is empathizing stage, as I said, observation is one thing. Social listening is another thing. Social listening is something you can do online also. So there are tools like Social Bakers, which is another website, which you can go to and type any specific area. It could be conversations around a specific topic, etc. So you can ask and see what people in that specific field are thinking or what their thoughts are on social media, right? So social listening is one thing you can do. Maybe you can monitor pages, competitors' accounts, and see the comments under them so you can gauge the mindset. Demographic research is one thing. Then market observation, as we discussed. And focused interviews, which is something a lot of companies anyway do in Sri Lanka. The first stage, empathize. So we spoke a lot about the first stage before as well in the human-centric mindset, but the goal is to understand the perspective of the customer, target user, or audience in relation to the problem. So activities you can do this are with face-to-face interviews, field observations, user experience surveys, focus panels, and qualitative research. This is an exercise you could do while you are observing and empathizing users to decide on the user, the needs, and the hidden ideas. So you can ask, who are your potential users, what their needs or requirements are. And then empathizing by asking, what are they feeling? What are they feeling when they're crossing the road instead of using a yellow crossing, right? What are they feeling when they're just dumping the garbage wherever they want to dump, right? And what are they feeling when they don't want to finish a task? So using a charade board, you can try to dig deeper and find out what exactly is triggering them. So since we are talking on a Sri Lankan market, here are a few insights on Sri Lanka as of 2026. The Sri Lankan consumers, after the pandemics, after the Easter attacks, after COVID, after economic crisis, we are very cautiously resilient people. We will spend, but cautiously. And we are also resilient. We know how to culturally conform and get together and come out of the ground root level, right? So their purchases are also intentional and purposeful. Then, digital fluency and trust. So a lot of people, especially not just the young crowd, even people who are in their 70s and 80s also, they are very avid users of TikTok and YouTube, mind you. They spend most of their time on YouTube, whether it's watching a teledrama, whether it's forwarding gossip. They'll just be clicking and sharing with WhatsApp groups and all. So everybody is a digital fluency user. So if you look at the village level also, many of them have smartphones. Even if they don't have a roof above their head, they will invest on a smartphone first. So you can be guaranteedly sure that they will have access. They are also global natives. That means they want a mix of global with local. Back then, people used to think, if it's global, that's better, you know. But now the mindset has changed a little bit, especially after the crisis and all. So now people are a little bit more supportive of local products, local entrepreneurs. They want to say, okay, we like products that have international standards, but which are local brands. So they will convert. So they are local natives. Be local, buy local, but with influenced by global standards. Hybrid shoppers. So people now, they use social media not to shop a majority of the time. They use it to look at products, look at places, look at experiences. They use it to observe and see, oh yeah, this place is nice, that place is good, they have a buffet at this price, this one has another buffet at that price. They won't go and purchase it there, right? Purchasing happens in person a majority of the times. They will look for the product online, they will purchase it in person. So that's one of the traits of the Sri Lankan 2026 consumer. The population. So as of 2026, we have 30 million mobile connections. 1 minute. Okay, skipped a slide. Yeah, 30 million mobile connections so far, right? That is a 130% penetration rate because we still only have 23 million people. So internet users as of 2026 are 13.9 million. So that was towards the end of last year. So, and then social media, we have 9 million social media users, and Instagram specifically has 2.5 million. Now it's 2.5, and TikTok has 4.5 or 4.8 million users in Sri Lanka, and so with the other platforms. Mobile connections. Phones. So, yeah, mobile connections would be SIM cards. So, some people have multiple SIMs, no? Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. So it includes mostly the connections because 30 million connections. 1 minute. Mobile connections, no? Yeah, yeah. So many people have a dual SIM. Some people have SIMs from these, that. For multiple reasons. Some have 5 SIMs or 10 SIMs also. It's become a Sri Lankan epidemic. But yeah, assume that they have multiple connections per user, but still our population is just 23 million. Yeah, 23.3 million. Median age. So this is important to note. When we look at the age categories, most companies here will think young people means anybody below 30 or anybody below 35. But consumer generations now are different. 34.4, the median age means the majority of them are millennials. People born between 1981 and 1996. That is the group that is now making the most money and who are sort of getting more wealth to stabilize. So that is the median age category. When you are looking to design products, remember that is the main market, right? So active internet users now are 14.3 million, and yeah, social media users, that's 9.2. And in terms of the social classes in Sri Lanka, 10% on the high end, and they focus on brand, international travel, luxury goods, dining out, specialized healthcare, and the C is the middle class. That's 40%. They focus on education, home improvements, value-added FMCG, local travel and cost conscious, right? And then the majority is the lower end, 50%, right? So that includes everybody living out of urban cities and mostly in the rural areas. So if we take Sri Lanka as a whole example, we have a very low-end population which is dominating the rest of the market segments, whereas the purchasing power is in the upper 2 segments. So the outcome of stage 1 of design thinking is ultimately to understand the pain points of your target audience, to reframe the problem, because this helps to create your eventual customer persona. Stage 2, that is called the define stage. So you have first in the first stage you observe people, you observe their needs, their behaviors. So you come up with a multiplicity of observations. So usually you can mark up to about 5 to 10 observations, but then you will notice a trend or something that has more weight than the others. That is why you come to stage 2, where you define the problem statement clearly. Sometimes some of your observations might carry the same underlying reason. So then you can use that as the main problem and define the problem statement clearly with a human-centric term and not business terms. So to do that, you can have a short idea sprint and cluster activities where people from all stakeholder teams will come out to map the customer observations to 3 main areas. You can use a model like mind maps. So there you have the problem and desired solution. In this case, you can actually reverse it and say observation and problem. So you can have multiple observations and figure out which one is recurring and create your problem statement from it. Right? So the outcome for stage 2 means you have to properly define the problem statement. You can't have like this might happen because of this is not solvable. You have to have a clear problem. People are not using the yellow crossing when it's convenient for them. Right? So that is a problem. They will use it only when they feel like it. Right? That's the added part of the same problem. So like that, don't have a maybe, an if, a what. Always have a solid statement, which is your problem, which you are going to address. Say for an example, in engineering terms, you can ask why even after building those flyovers, right, Dematagoda still gets stuck. So what is the solution to solve that problem of a traffic block, right? You get all these things coming in, and ultimately that one color light handles all the volume of traffic across people leaving the airport, people coming to Colombo, people leaving Colombo. So like that, think of the mainframe problem and solidify a statement to it. So because we are going to be having a little exercises after this, I'm going to define the ideate stage. So ideate stage is actually key. That is where you make an idea to solve the problem you saw. Whether it's a better highway, whether it's a different system to send traffic before it reaches the Matagoda junction, whatever the case, you ideate as many ideas as possible to counter the problem. So it involves brainstorming to think out of the box. So you can form, usually in companies we sort of suggest them to form 3 to 4 teams and collectively brainstorm multiple solutions to solve the problem, not one solution. Because using the ideation process, if you have at least 3 solutions, you can weed it out and test it out. So this is called the idea evaluation matrix. When you have teams that have come up with multiple solutions, this is the best way to weed out what is feasible, what is viable, and what you should discard. So over here, if you look at this table, one side looks at low effort and low value to customers. That is not going to work, because low effort and low value is a waste of your resources. So where effort is low but value to customer is high is where your quick wins will come. Right? Similarly, when effort is high and then value to customer is low is also a very bad idea. Like a lot of companies here do. They don't look at it, they put a lot of effort and then they assume, okay, customers will want it, but they don't. Then where effort is high and your value to customer is high, you have to look at a testing prototype to see if it's worthwhile going into production. Right? So this is the best way for you to weed out multiple product ideas, multiple engineering innovations, or multiple solutions that you want to address, so that you can cut off whatever doesn't seem feasible. Because given the limited resources and the financial constraints in this country, the one thing you need is to be wasting time and wasting money. Right? So idea evaluation is a must. outcome of stage 3 should be to collect as many good ideas as possible, which you can evaluate, test, and run. So if you have multiple teams in your company to do the brainstorming, you can give each team one individual idea, which a solution, which they can test, create a prototype, run it with the audience or the market, and see if it works or fails, right? So that you will not center yourself only on one solution, which could fail. Let's look at a few practical applications of design thinking. So these are some of the best companies that have globally used design thinking, especially Netflix and Google, which is one of the main thinking processors for ideating products, especially Gemini. With Google Gemini, you would have noticed that we've come up with newer products to create music videos, to create visual videos, and also to create different multiplicity of AI-based solutions. So all that is done through the use of design thinking, right? For almost every process inside Google, they follow that practice. So everybody at Google is not going to be sitting and saying, okay, I know what's best and let me put it out there. They will use this process. By default, it's embedded into them to think, let me look at the problem first and then solve it. Let me observe, look, solve. So that is the mentality that they follow. So all of them are very apt to doing that. Let's look at one local example so that we can kind of reiterate. So a local case study that where design thinking was properly used is Pick Me Flash. So with Flash, they came up with it before Uber came up with their package delivery services. What they tapped into was the requirement for people to send and receive small goods for small business owners, for home bakers, for personal use. They thought, okay, there was a market where people wanted to send an item, they couldn't go. And that was COVID also, so they can't go and deliver in person. Courier companies were taking forever, and you can't track it easily. So they came up with a solution where they thought, okay, fine, we will use the same model of delivery, and we'll allow people to deliver something which you have made in your house for lunch to him, or whatnot, with immediate tracking service. And that picked off very well. Quick to market innovation. They did a first mover advantage. Before Uber thought of coming up with it, they moved quickly. So sometimes first mover advantage is a very important thing, because if you keep using years and months and days and endless, conversations before launching something, somebody else is probably going to launch before you. That's one really common habit I've seen, especially in the public sector in Sri Lanka, right? Even to come up with a small program or a small launch or a small event, they will have about 20 meetings where everybody gathers. They'll have a good cup of tea and a bit of short eats, and they'll talk for hours and hours. But the purpose and the value of the meeting is low because it's on a low effort matter. So, yeah, Pick Me is Sri Lankan. Yeah, Pick Me is fully Sri Lankan. They started in Sri Lanka, so during the COVID time also they were having the normal rides and then food delivery service. But Pick Me Flash came in because Uber still hasn't introduced the Pick Me delivery services for packages. So that's why they felt that people can deliver packages in real time, get it to send to different places fast, and they came up with Flash. How is it now moving? Okay, that's great. So, since we looked at design thinking so far, let's do a little exercise, right? Using your knowledge, using what you have learned so far. So, this is called a design challenge, right? So, I'm giving you a simulatory problem here. Colombo City is facing multiple challenges in its vision for growth in 2030. It wishes to be comparable to leading cities in the region. So, in leading cities in the region, we'll look at the SAARC region for the time being because we can't be Singapore yet, right? And infrastructurally, technologically, and supportively, it wants to become like other countries in the region. But Colombo City lacks the financial support, the backing, and innovations, could be technology, could be engineering, to reach that state with the minimal use of resources. Remember, this is the most important constraint you have for this challenge. So this challenge we have approximately 30 minutes to work on. Jasmine, 30 minutes, yeah? Yeah, 20, 30 minutes. We'll focus on 20 minutes so it's easier, right? So this is the problem you have. Colombo City, which wants to be like other countries in the region, and it lacks the financial backing and support on innovations to reach that state, right? Silent writing. This is the first thing you're going to do for the next 5 minutes, right? Let's see the timing now. 11:23. So in the next 5 minutes, you are going to write down 3 aspects and 3 questions that come into your mind when you think about the Colombo city and how it is in comparison to other countries, other main cities in this region. Okay, not in the European region, but in the Southeast Asian region or South Asian region, right? What are 3 aspects and 3 questions that come into your mind? Given that we have very minimal financial resources, our government is not going to give a lot. So, considering that, what are the best things you could do to at least help uplift the city in the next 5 years or 4? No. You can think of a solution. It could be in any area. It could be better resource management. It could be better bus stops or something. Anything, any aspect which you can help to improve in the Colombo city in the next 4 years to to kind of compete with other nations and other cities in the region, right? Any angle. It doesn't have to be one angle saying, infrastructure development as a whole. No. It can be some little thing, whether it's backed by engineering, whether it's backed by technology, whether it's maybe a lifestyle change or a policy change, anything, right? But think of 3 aspects and 3 questions that come into your mind. So you have 5 minutes starting now. It's 11:25. So until 11:30, think of 3 aspects and 3 questions. What you get when you think of Colombo city as it is right now, and compare it to another city you have been to in the region. Yes, you can classify the 3 aspects, and then from that you can generate 2 questions that comes from it. Yeah. So if you're looking, aspect could be an example like, better waste management in Colombo city, or better rain waste and better monsoon conditions and all, because we get block roads in Colombo city all the time, right? The moment it rains, all of these hot curves and everything, and near Remington and all, it gets blocked. So to mitigate certain issues which Colombo city has. Yes. No. I mean, you can say 3 aspects and 1 question each you can have. Up to you. You can have either 9 questions or 1 question for each aspect. So yeah, you can write either just three aspects with one question each, or three aspects with three questions, but you only have 5 minutes. 2 more minutes left. One more minute left. Done? Okay. Is everybody done? Okay. All right. So I'm not going to ask your ideas yet until the end of this, where you will speak up, right? So first is the silent writing. As that we noted three aspects and three questions that come into your mind with regards to Colombo City's vision for 2030. So then the second step, which is now it's 11:30. So we'll use the next 10 minutes for you to do a little bit of research, right? Using your phone, or if you have your laptop, one of the two, right? Do a little bit of browsing on each of these aspects and the questions. Try to find out which one is most urgent, considering what Colombo is currently going through, its economic problems, and its maybe other infrastructural issues. Think out of the problems you have written down, which one is very urgent to solve, right? And find some evidence to back it up. So you are going to be given 10 minutes, starting from now it's 11:31 until 11:41. You will have some time to either talk to somebody or go through with your phone, or even if you have your laptop, and figure out of those issues which is the most urgent one. In looking at observations, try to analyze how many people will that affect. If you have ChatGPT on your phone, that's the easiest way to do for the time being, right? Type in the prompt. This is the issue I'm looking at, right? Mention the issue that you're looking for and ask it to analyze and find data in relation to people affected by that issue, right? Because you're looking at the problem now, you're going to be looking at people affected by that issue. What is the number of people who have faced that problem, and how can, like, don't ask about how it can be mitigated, but just look at the market condensation. Most importantly, when you're prompting on ChatGTP, if you are using it, right, make it to ask it or request it to back it up with sources and facts. Otherwise, it will generate responses based on what it wants, right? So for that sort of research, I would recommend using a platform like Claude AI, especially when you want to do research, right? Claude is from a company called Anthropic. This is best for research. And we also have Google Gemini. I would not recommend using this when you have the opportunity to go outside and observe or to make first-hand observations, but when you want secondary research, these two are palpable resources to use. When you're doing your research, try to analyze which is the most important question out of those three, right? And as always, when you're coming up with the problem and deciding which is most urgent to solve, use what we studied just now, the human-centric mindset. Hmm. Hmm. You can keep it on your phone, but you can use that information to assess by yourself what issue is most urgent, right? Keep the information with you because I will be asking why it's urgent, right? So keep that information with you, but maybe you can write one liner on what you choose as the main problem and why you chose it. How many of you here confidently use AI in a day-to-day basis? Mm-hmm. Yes. ChatGPT is good for creative prompts and social media posts, but when you want research-based stuff, these two are good. Who else uses ChatGPT quite a bit? Almost everyone. Hmm? That's also good, yes. You have 5 more minutes to observe secondary research and pick a problem. No, this is the second stage, right? While you're observing and doing your research, make sure now if you have a piece of paper or your phone, you pick the problem when you have done your research and you write one statistic to support why you chose that problem. Okay? One statistic, one main statistic you found out, why you chose that problem specifically. Yeah, one statistic. It could be a percentage or something of that relevant data pool. You have 3 more minutes for that. Remember to pick a problem and show one research statistic as to why you choose that problem. One more minute left. Okay, so time is up. Have you done picking the problem and finding one research stat to support it? Done? Everybody? You? Okay? Right. Okay. So, after that, we are moving on to the next stage, the next 10 minutes, right? Design framing. That's also going to be allocated 10 minutes. So in this one, in your piece of paper or in your phone, identify in relation to the problem the why, which is the problem, the who, people who are affected by it or people who could be end users, the what it aims to solve, the with what, meaning what resources are being used or what are available resources to solve it, the who and what else, competition, alternatives, right? So these 5 points are what you need to address in this 10 minutes in relation to the problem you just chose. So if you're logging in online, you can email those results to this email address. If not, you can just write it down now. The why, the who, the what, with what, and what else. Just simple statements. You don't have to write long lines. Just one simple line for each of those problem points. Yeah, whatever problem you selected in the previous stage, you then deeply analyze the why, the who, the what, the with what, and the what else. This method is actually convenient for not just for product iterations, even any other problems that you're trying to solve on a daily basis in personal life also sometimes. You can apply a similar model of thinking. Okay. Right, so for those who successfully complete this exercise, you will receive a digital certification. And for your results, please email them to eeb2018iesl@gmail.com. in the last section, which is the what else, it could refer to other products, other services, or other alternatives that will solve this issue, right? It doesn't have to be those in Sri Lanka necessarily, but it can be things implemented in other countries, right? With what? Yeah, with what is available resources. Remember, in Sri Lanka, you have financial limited, like budgets are like limited, and also other resources are very minimal. So, given that frugality, what can you sort of solve, or what can you do? If you're creating a product, uh, I don't think the government will be happy to fund more than 10,000 bucks on a unit in best cases. Otherwise, it will usually be under 5,000 rupees. So keep that as a marginal line to remember based on the problem you're solving. No. Why? The who is the people who are affected by it, who will ultimately be end users of the solution you create, right? The people who need the solution to solve that issue. They are the who. So the with what means the what are the resources that you are going to use to solve it, to solve this problem. The resources you are going to use to solve this problem. As I mentioned earlier, the constraint is the fact that Sri Lanka is a low budget country when it comes to financial availability. So given that, you can form a solution around it, understanding that we have to find a solution that is a bit low budgeted but which will solve the problem. So whatever available resources you're using, you can mention. It could be public resources, private resources, anything. No, so you have to email this. For this challenge, you can email it, right, Jasmine? Yeah. Yeah. The results of this, once you are done with the complete cycle, email it to this email address. No, from this exercise. Yeah. Yeah, you can check afterwards. Only for the online participants, we need them to email. Physical participants, we can check in place. The competitor. No. This last line is to analyze your competition. Oh, it is. Uh-huh. Jasmine, I think it reversed. Could you just check? The last two, sorry? Mm. The who are the competitors? No. Competitors means, say for an example, you're proposing like a better garbage can. Who else is doing better garbage cans in this country? That sort of thing. Who are the other competitors who are providing alternatives? It could be a better garbage can, it could be like disposable waste products, anything. Oh yeah, full screen. No, it's yeah for this. Yeah, that's the email address. Hmm. Ah, okay. No, otherwise, since you're physically present, you don't have to email. We can check it. Yeah, you have to write again. Okay, okay. Then yes, compose. Yes, yeah, yeah. Okay. You have 3 more minutes left. Have you identified the who, the what, the why, what else, and with what? Remember, simple statements are enough. We have 1 more minute left. Yeah, WE 2018 IESL@gmail.com. Is everybody done? Done? Okay. Mm. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. Reports. Right. Mm-hmm. Yes, that is the other problem. There are things which you can do on a private sector level, and then there are things you can do on the public sector level. So, my, I would suggest maybe coming up with solutions that are doable on a private sector level as well, or which can be done in conjunction with the CMC or, the Colombo State Municipal Council and all. Yes, that's the sad part with the red tape. Hopefully, the current government can kind of circumvent that. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yes. I think there are reservations on both sides. Yeah. Mm-mm. Mm-hmm. True. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes. That's why in a country like Sri Lanka, it's important when you're doing something that works with infrastructure, go with solutions that are simpler first, which are not going to require huge bureaucratic agreements, uh, lots of red tape areas, or lots of permissions, or things which you need authority signatures for. Try to go with solutions that are simpler, which they can also understand and which they won't feel threatened by. Then it will work in Sri Lanka. The moment anybody, an existing competitor or even a government or a agency or something here in Sri Lanka feels threatened, that is when they will influence other parties to come and stop a new project coming in. So that's why in most cases when you launch new products here, it's best to start something very small which can make change, and once they realize the change, quickly put a bit of a bigger proposal or a plan in place, especially in the public sector. That I've noticed happening quite often. Done? Okay? Okay, yes. Sure. Hmm. Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. Increase, yes. Everybody falls asleep. That's why, I mean, that's why when you have to have, because the human mindset, right, it doesn't focus for more than 40 minutes. So once 40 minutes expires, especially now that 40 minutes sometimes also doesn't work, because you have your phone with you, you get messages, then you want to quickly check, and you want to see what's happening on news, on social media platforms, on Instagram or Facebook. So your attention is dispersed. That's why on scrolling and on social media, the average attention span is 2.3 seconds. 2.3 seconds, and you keep scrolling. If it's on TikTok, it's about 1.6 seconds now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh-huh. Addiction. Oh, okay. Get out of. Yeah. Yes, yes. That is very important. That's actually a really good piece of information. Ah, right. Okay. Because the more we rely, I mean, although technology is good, we need to know the best use and the worst use also, right? And then use it accordingly to get work done. Because if not, when you get into that scrolling addiction, you're done for, right? So yeah, let us move on to. So the design frame, the last 5 minute exercise out of the same thing, yes. Now, so since you have identified the key figures in the previous section, right? The what, the who, the what else. You now write this sentence. My framing focused on solving, put your problem which you mentioned, in one or two words by using what. But the biggest risk to the system is you can put this if there is a risk to the system. So this is your problem statement. So it's, say for an example, I'll use the gab. Yes, yes, no problem, no problem. So I will take this through with an example, right? So if I was doing the brainstorming session, I would say something like, a lot of people in CMC face this issue where when they pick up garbage from the public garbage areas, a lot of garbage is strewn, or else they have to come multiple times. Some of the garbage cans get filled up faster, although there's not absolute weight, right? So a lot of people keep saying it's a fuel wastage and all that. So the sentence here would then be, my framing focused on solving the the continuous garbage um, excess in public areas by using maybe a compression method for a new type of garbage can, where, say for an example, you get plastics where you can pedal and compress so that it forms a compressed amount and you can put more garbage in, so that you can reduce the number of times you go and collect that garbage, and less work for the garbage trucks and less work for garbage workers. So that would be the why, my solution. But the biggest risk to that system is, that is only if there is a risk to the system. In my given case, I don't think there is a risk to the system because it's going to be helping them. But if there is a risk, then you can say the biggest risk to the system is maybe the outsourced garbage truck suppliers might not like the lack of business. It could be one of those things, or it could be that compression-based garbage systems might tamper with. Yes, yeah. So then you can't compress different things. Yeah. So yes. So if it's glass, obviously you won't be able to use the compression system. But if it's like paper waste, or if it's like plastic waste, this method can be used. Yeah. Yes. So there there will be certain like limitations. So those limitations you could mention here. But it is solvable because it's on an hands-on one. Right? So that means you are defining the problem statement with the limitation of the problem. So in my case, the garbage method, compression method could be used where you are looking at paper waste and plastic waste. We have 3 more minutes for this. Two more minutes. Write this sentence as it is. You just insert your problem and insert your solution. So X denotes the problem, Y denotes the solution. And if there are any limitations, that would be Z. Z. For those of you who are filling this online, yeah. It could be the biggest risk to the system, or it could be a limitation or certain limited applications of the product. One of the two. So for those of you who are filling it online, please make sure you email this problem statement to the email address given before. Not to the implementation. It can't be. Then you can't implement anything. No? You have to look at only the limited applications of the product. In my case, as I said, it won't apply to glass, right, or food waste. You can't really compress it unless it turns into compost, right? So just look at the product, the limited applications of the product, not the implementation per se. All right, so we are out of time and done. So let me know who has finished this statement so we can hear it. Yeah? Can you read it out? Hmm? Okay. Okay. Suburb, sorry? Okay. Suburban, uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They want the Colombo City effect. Right. So in your case, the only problem with the solution is, since it's not something that is, it's a policy level implementation, so it's not something that can be readily, easily implemented. But if, say, for an example, your problem is valid, like increasing price of land in the Colombo City. So if you could come up with a solution like where you can have like a real-time land value monitor, where say people Nowadays there's a habit of people to jack up the price and then tell you stuff, no. But if you look at the realistic scale, it should be the value of the purchase price versus if it's a new house less than 20 years, then you put a square foot price. So some people, even if it's a house more than 20 years old, they will put a square foot price also on top of the purchase price. So if there is a way for people who browse through specific property in a specific road, maybe like Havelock Road or something, to use that calculator and assess the actual land value and counter propose, where there is transparency, then that will work to my sort of mute down the huge flux in the prices. So something like that might be applicable, because if you say moving out the cities to the suburban areas, that means you have to look at a policy level change, asking governments to consider this and all that, which in Sri Lanka might not happen. So that's why I'm saying suggest different mechanisms where you can mitigate it using a simpler way, right? Because the more you want to focus on getting approvals, the less it's going to work out, because our departments take a long time to give approvals. So, and also there are other political constraints and all as well, no? So something like that would be helpful. Okay. Yes, the email address. Okay. Double EB, that one. Anybody else? Yes. Hmm. But specifically which disaster? Because it can't be too broad also. One disaster, choose one disaster. Okay, hurricane. Yeah. Mm. But what sort of mechanism? That's where you need to narrow it down. So anybody can say something like overall, no? So if you say, for an example, my problem is to mitigate hurricane-based disaster. Yes, so it could be something like a hurricane-proof housing design or low-cost hurricane-proof housing design. Mm. Yes. Yeah. So then it's framed properly. If you say overall, like in general, natural disasters, because earthquake to a tsunami to everything would have different requirements, right? Okay, right. So what about you? Okay. Just one method. Okay. So what is a specific traffic problem you want to address? Choose one. Intersection. Okay. Then solution. Hmm. Hmm. Monitoring. Hmm. Yes. Hmm. Yeah. No internal. Yes. So it's more like an internal calibration technique, no? For them to kind of monitor all the lights coming on. In Colombo, in Gall Road, that is available. I've noticed in Gall Road, when one traffic light turns green, the rest of it also goes green. But in other areas, not so much. So, yeah. Okay. So, intersections, traffic, maybe a system to kind of mitigate that, no? Okay. And then what's the any system risk? Yes. Mm-hmm. Or it's also the police infrastructure where they switch off the color light system and they do the hand manual system anyway. In Colombo, when you notice Horton Place traffic, you know that it's a cop somewhere. Yeah. Yes. Right, right. You should propose this and see if they can take it into account, at least to implement in the Colombo city area. Mm. Okay. Oh. Mm-mm. Right. Yes. Uh-huh. Happy to. That's the system. Mm. System implications. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Doesn't. There are, like, I think it's more like the system inherent mindset in Sri Lanka. If somebody wants to do something, that epa no, like because if they feel threatened by something, the first instinct is like no, 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 we can't give approval. No, no, no. It's more like they, yeah, creativity is lost, and also they feel intimidated. They think, oh, maybe that person අනියා එයාට කොහොමද ආවේ idea එක? ඒතකොට එයා කරොත් මට මේක I'm going to lose my importance. So they cut and block. So that's one of the reasons why our country is stagnating sometimes and not moving forward, sadly. What about you? What would be your reason? Mm. Yeah, very much. Frame it in that same sentence. Okay. Yeah. So your problem is which one? What is the main problem? Mm. And how do you plan to solve it? Yes. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm-hmm. The university is to be relocated. Okay. Mm. But that's going to be a massive structural change, which you're going to hit like a lot of, yeah, to the area. Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Yes, only thing is you're going to face a lot of resistance. So sometimes when we come up with ideas, we have to see which ideas have a lot of resistance and which don't have resistance. Like that's the Sri Lankan method. They want a massive change, but then when you come to do the change, as this gentleman has experienced, there'll be so much of red tape and people saying no. Financial laws, ask Sabaragamu, no, sorry, ask Javadanapura to move. They will bash you left, right, and center. Yeah, even Colombo University, they will not move because those are mandates by the British government also. No? So they have been given those land plots for the prestige also. So that might not be possible, but you can look at a different mechanism to sort out main targeted traffic areas. What is causing it? Sometimes the police guys are causing it because they want to clean one line and then within the other line. So either you have to train the police on managing the traffic, or you have to come up with a system like the green traffic system, or you have to give hours, a peak cover and a charge. If you're using that specific road stretch at a specific cover, you're charged. That sort of solution which can easily be implemented because massive structural changes are not going to be possible. So when we are coming with solutions, we have to understand that and not look at massive policy level changes, but something simple that can be started off faster, which can create avenues to move other things and shift other things around. Right? Okay, then yo. Hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So narrow road is the main problem, right? Okay. What is the solution? Hmm. Hmm. Mm-hmm. 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 That's the other thing. So again, Policy level. You know how many people in these like Matakuli areas, then around Slave Island. God, to remove them from that to construct those like apartments and all was yeah, attached to it, because for them it's like, okay, number one, subjectivity is also there, and then number two, it's also the fact that they want to, yeah, they have other businesses they do in the shanties, no, so they don't want to move from the shanty, they want to keep another apartment somewhere else, although the government will relocate them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was by force, like if you do by force it'll work, but then a lot of like this government won't do it through force. Yeah. So, but for something like this, try to come up with a solution that is a little bit more product oriented, which doesn't involve a lot of policy change. Because the moment you go policy change, all those will be kept in a pipeline for the next 50 years and nobody will do anything. That's what's going to happen with each government, right? So, so narrow roads, yeah, so narrow roads, either you have to look at some different means of a traffic system, or yeah, flyovers or crossing bridges that are going above, or some means, as I said, to indicate that people who are entering Colombo will be given a toll charge. So that sort of thing can be implemented. Say for an example, those coming out of Colombo on a daily basis to Colombo during a certain time frame will have a small toll or something like that. ඒ වගේ ගියොත් like you can implement. But when you go to do no, like it's like this. So it's also a government revenue. No, you charge 10 rupees a person. Again, it's something mild. Not many people are going to face a huge impact from 10 rupees. So they do that. They do that. Given the number of hours and people who enter, no. So if you charge a 10 rupee thing when they are entering at the peak hour, and non-peak hour no charge, but peak hour in certain areas, yeah, then people who are just coming for sake of nothing will avoid coming. So those sort of policy changes can be done, but when it requires a lot of structural change, this is where we will be getting resistance. What about you? ගානන්නේ ඔය ඕනක කතා හරි රයිට් ෂෙයා වගේ යනවා දැන් නේ අඩු නිසා ඔව් ඔව් ඉතුරු වෙනවා ටැප් සිස්ටම් එකක් වගේ ගියා නම් නේද time එකයි queuing time එකයි and සමහරට දැන් ওই බස් ඩිපෝස් වල ගියාම especially like පිටකොටු එහෙම ගියාම අර සමහර බස්ස් වලට මිනිස්සු කාගෙන නගිනවනේ එතකොට ඒ වගේ වෙලාවට මොනිටර් කරන්න ක්‍රමයක් තිබ්බනම් එතකොට මේ බස්ස් ටික available මේක vacant seats තියනවා නම් හරි මොකක් හරි ඒක එන duration එක දැන් අනිත් countries වල bus stand එකේ හිටියාම ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ වැටෙනවා මේ බස් එක approaching 3 minutes time එකක් එනවා තව එක්කෙනෙක් එනවා විනාඩි 7කින් එතකොට හැමෝම අර එකකට කාගෙන යන ගතිය අඩු වෙනවා ඒක either through a app hari නැත්නම් මොන හරි bus stands වල set up කරගන්න පුළුවන් නම් that might be helpful නේ. තව මොකද වගේ තිබ්බා අනිත් problem එක? energy ඒක මොකද issue එක? store වෙනවා. වඩා ග්‍රීඩ් එකට දාන්නත් පුළුවන් නේ එහෙම වුණොත් but facilities දැන් ග්‍රීඩ් එකට ගන්නෙත් නෑ දෙන්න හැදුවමත් ගන්න නෑ but yeah for other use එකකට තියාගන්න පුළුවන් නම් not available here yeah that's a good one it's actually a good startup idea future developments yes yeah find out other applications කොහොමද තව විදිහ තියෙනවා කියලා මේ හයිඩ්‍රජන් යූස් කරන හැටි මේකේ කන්වර්ට් කරන්න පුළුවන් okay ඒක තමයි හයිඩ්‍රජන් ලිතියම් එකට වැඩිය යා ලිතියම් එකේ side effects එනවනේ Cost එක වැඩි. Oh. Hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. Very good. No, actually very good. No, that's actually good. Your thought process is pretty decent, huh? Because අර කිව්වා වගේ solution එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ කරන්න පුළුවන් එකක් without minimal government intervention. අපේ රටවල වල government intervention එක ගිය ගමන්ම පොඩ්ඩක් ඔක lag back වෙනවා. අවුරුදු ගාණක් යනවා approvals හම්බ වෙන්නේ නැහැ සමහරලාට. එක්කෝ red tape තියෙනවා, එක්කෝ මොනවා හරි වෙන issues තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ඉංග්‍රීසි ඔය විදිහට ගියා නම් හරි. යා. ඒ වගේම similar systems ඔය traffic වලට issues වලට නැත්නම් land value වලට අර මං කිව්වා වගේ app එකක් open කරා නම් එක්ක website එකක් where you can monitor real time land value and bid accordingly. You will make a big buck. So a vidhiyata think differently where you can come up with a solution that can be quickly implemented, which requires minimal government approval. Bypass karana thang හැම එකෙන් bypass කරන්න. If you really can't, then you have to stick to it, no choice, right? But good stuff. And what about you? Hmm. Mm-hmm. You mean vertically long or long? Ah, both. Okay. Ah, double decker. Yes. Okay. Height limitation. Yes. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You mean like the beggars or just normal people asking money? Beggars, huh? With children, yes, yes, yeah. Children, yeah, yeah, yes. Mm. Mm-hmm. What would the solution be then? Mm. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, like a vocational training sort of thing. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. No, there are ministers behind it too. You can't say it, but then, yeah, usually that's the case. But yeah, I mean that's something from the government angle they need to look into, especially to ban children from begging. So because they use children, they will drug them also sometimes, and they'll keep them for hours. So those things are there. But then try to focus on a solution that is a little bit more product oriented, as I told these people as well, so that you can easily implement it with minimal government intervention. Maybe you could have like a tapping charity system or something where instead of asking 20, 30 rupees, you give them a device where they can tap and contribute. It won't go to the beggar. It will go to maybe a facility that will take care of the children, or maybe send them to school or teach them, especially beggars' children. So something like that will work better with a NGO or maybe a charitable organization. Social enterprising, something like that might work. Because when the moment you go to change the entire begging system, I don't know what will happen. Because that is something that a lot of people have, as she said, a lot of side businesses with it too. So yeah, right. So I hope you have emailed your frame to that email address so that Jasmine and the committee can send you the certificates. Mm-hmm. Free versions. Mm. Yeah. Make sure whenever you're typing a prompt, don't just type the prompt. You say, find sources and resources to back this up and give me statistics. So at the end of everything, you ask that. So that when they give you a result, they will cross check, back check, and give you statistics from credible resources only. Nothing, it will create whatever you want to give also, like anything that will support your view. So when you say that in the prompt, then it will stop it from giving. But then there's a way to check in Gemini. Statistics. Yeah, to give it sources and statistics to back up the statements. And in Gemini, there's a option where you can go to the result. There's a three dots on the result now. So you click that. It says double check my response. When you click that, Gemini will start checking the response and the statistic to see if there is anything wrong with what it has quoted. Right? So then it will double check and tell you verified sources only. Any questions? Anybody with the session? Any questions? No? Yes. Make sure it's not just for this session you'll ask questions from me. In general, at your workplace, right? Maybe not at home because the wife might get angry or something if you ask too many questions, right? But in your workplace, in your surroundings, wherever you move, question everything. Don't take it just because this chai is blue color. Question like, why do you want to stick with blue? Is that your theme? Or, things like that. Question everything that you see. Question why a road is like this, why the manhole is in the middle instead of inside, and why in other countries the manholes are not that deep. But in Sri Lanka, you'll lose a tire and a shock absorber the moment you go over it. So you can ask questions in general about everything. When you face a problem, ask why am I facing this problem? What led to this problem? That's the easiest way to solve it, right? So yeah, as she said, there'll be more sessions with different experts. And yes, I am available on LinkedIn. I go as Sajini Jayawardena. My other slide. Yeah, these are our contact numbers also, if you want to reach us for anything. Because, yeah, at One Golf Face Tower. So we do a lot of innovation trainings and also design sprints where we come to the company and we do design thinking for them to solve their problem with the internal staff, because some companies don't want to give their problems out now. So in those situations, that's what we do. All right then. Thank you so much for attending this session, both online and offline.